And Macron is still single-handedly refusing the democratic results. There is no way to look at the situation. There's no way to interpret the situation other than Macron is single-handedly f***ing this up. I'm saying it. Macron did the meme. Yeah, I saw. Macron is also finalizing the beautiful historical relic that I keep warning about, which is that neoliberals will almost always, historically at least, align with fascists over anyone that is even remotely left. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to be a communist, a Maoist, or anything like that. You could just be like a social democrat, and neoliberals will align with fascists before they allow a social democrat to even come to the table and get a crumb of power. Here's Macron doing that as he is refusing Mélenchon and the leftist coalition that won the election to pick a prime minister. The French president Emmanuel Macron is now meeting. Not only was he refusing to not only was he blocking the left-wing choice for the French prime minister, he is now aligned or potentially aligning with the far right. So we'll see. Left-wing alliance NFP has failed to secure a cross-party backing for its choice for prime minister, leaving France without a government. France's President Emmanuel Macron launched a new round of talks with political party leaders on Tuesday to find a way to form a new government and appoint a prime minister. The French political system was thrown into chaos on Monday night when, following a weekend of talks between party leaders, Macron refused to appoint the candidate proposed for prime minister by the left-wing New Popular Front alliance. While the NFP won most of the seats in the recent parliamentary elections, it did not win an overall majority. The NFP, which is made up of parties France Unbowed, the Socialist Party, the Greens, the Communist Party, had proposed a relatively unknown civil servant, Lucie Castetz, 37, for the prime ministerial role. Mélenchon is also calling for mass protests on September 7th. We will cover that as well. Hold on, let me just keep going through this. But the alliance's lack of majority in the National Assembly and its failure to receive backing for its candidate from the other two allies, Macron's own centrist Ensemble alliance and the far-right National Rally, means it would be unable to function properly as an effective government, Macron said. Now, if you remember, part of the reason why Macron is deeply unpopular is also because he refused to listen to the shit ton of protests that were occurring when he needed to increase the retirement age. Everyone was like, don't do that. We will burn this country into the ground. And not because we're just French and we love doing that, but for a valid reason. And he was like, nah, dog, I'm going to do it anyway. Except for the police, by the way. Except for the police, because we need those guys to protect. We need those guys to protect us from the protesters. So he did that. He was deeply unpopular. Out of nowhere, he was like, let's do another election. F it, YOLO. After the far right won major seats in the European elections, he decided out of nowhere, without even telling his own party, that he was going to call an election. Very weird decision. Now, he called that election and understandably lost. The New Popular Front. The New Popular Front actually made major gains because they did something that was unthinkable, which is unite under one singular banner. Okay? Liberals not endorsing socialists and backing the fascist party. Where have I heard this before? The major difference here is that in the democratic process, the socialist adjacent party won. They are the majority. I mean, not the majority, but they are the plurality in this situation, in the coalition at least. They have the most amount of votes. They have the most amount of seats. So clearly it doesn't even matter. It's not even like a KPD situation. His decision has prompted fury from the left-wing alliance, with some lawmakers calling for him to be impeached. On Tuesday, he called on the left-wing parties to work harder to cooperate with the other parties to create institutional stability before a new government could be formed. The Socialist Party, the Greens, and the Communists have not proposed ways to cooperate with other political forces. It is now up to them to do so. So why is France's parliament in such a disarray, and what happens next? The July parliamentary elections left a split parliament, with the seats in the National Assembly split fairly evenly between the three political alliances. The NFP won 190 seats, Macron's centrist alliance 160, Marine Le Pen's National Rally, the far-right one, took 140 seats. No alliance or party won the necessary 289 out of the 577 seats to secure an absolute majority. Why did Macron block the NFP's pick for prime minister? As head of state, Macron is solely responsible for choosing the prime minister, but he's not legally obliged to select a candidate from the largest group in the National Assembly. What do you mean wrong? Big dog, we're just reading a news article about events that unfolded. What do you mean? Never mind. Okay. Like, not only is this a reputable institution of journalism, especially as it pertains to like European and Western news, but beyond that, it is just, giving us an account of exactly what happened, things that happened, literally. I covered it at the time. Macron was sidelined by the results. His hope was a right win that he could use to damage the election chances of the next presidential race. His party forced him back to the NFP during the vote, and it resulted in the hung parliament. Yes. Talks with leaders from the other two alliances, including Marine Le Pen, leader of the far-right National Rally, over the weekend and on Monday, made clear that they would not support the NFP's choice. Post-Left Watch real quiet today. I mean, dude, come on. Those guys. As a result, an NFP-led government would not be able to function, Macron said. He said it would be immediately censored by all the other groups represented in the National Assembly. My responsibility is that the country is not blocked nor weakened, as I am attempting to weaken the country, as I am attempting to block progress. He called on all political leaders to rise to the occasion by demonstrating a spirit of responsibility. Again, vague bullshit. Vague bullshit. Classic. However, while he mentioned the Greens, Socialist, Communists in a statement, he left out the hard-left France Embaud, which also forms part of the NFP. Macron has previously referred to the LFI as an extreme movement. The center and right-wing parties also criticized the NFP's big spending manifesto as it comes at a time when the country faces a budget deficit and a debt mountain. Macron has appointed Gabriel Attal, who became France's youngest prime minister at the age of 35 in January, as a caretaker prime minister. Macron is under pressure to pick a new prime minister as the deadline to present a draft 2025 budget is just a month away. The LFI reacted with anger to Macron's comments, with its national coordinator, Manuel Bompard, calling his decision an unacceptable and anti-democratic coup. LFI leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon also demanded a firm and strong response by the public and politicians on X on Monday night and called for a motion of impeachment against Macron. Communist Party leader Fabien Roussel also called for a grand popular mobilization. On Tuesday morning, the LFI published a statement on X urging a large-scale mobilization on September 7th and called on youth organizations and student unions to take to the streets to defend democracy. You know who reacted positively to this?
Meanwhile, business leaders are gathering at the annual end of summer convention of MEDEF, that's France's largest employers federation. Some were worried that it would energize the left even more and make voters angry. Others are relieved. France 24's Yuka Royer has been speaking with Laurent Saint-Martin, president of Business France. That's a government-backed organization charged with promoting French companies and exports and attracting foreign investment.
I'm with Laurent Saint-Martin, president of Business France. It's a government-backed agency in charge of promoting French companies, exports, and attracting international investments. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, how has the political limbo of the past few weeks impacted the business climate here in France?
Well, actually, all the foreign investors are aware that French President Emmanuel Macron is very committed to keep our country very attractive. So, of course, it's special and new in France because we are waiting for a new government. But what happened yesterday was very important because the far left wing was rejected as a possible government in France, meaning that the politics in terms of attractiveness, in terms of economic politics, will remain the same or will remain attractive for foreign investors. And this is very important because what we have done since now 2017 with the Choose France events are really a success because since now 2019, France is the top leader in Europe in terms of FDIs, and it's not hazard, and because it's thanks to our French politics, tax politics, and labor reforms. So this is why now French is so attractive, and it will remain.
But France still does not have a new government, does not have a new prime minister. So the president's decision yesterday only prolonged the political turmoil, don't you think?
No, yeah, of course it's, when you're an investor, you hate uncertainty. So you need to foresee what's going to happen for the next years in France.
It's very hard for the French left. While the LFI is in the coalition, they will not reach mainstream success, but without them, they don't have enough left support. Dude, you are watching a business owner. You are watching a representative of the corporate wing openly talk about how sick it is, openly talk about how dope it is that Macron is blowing up the democratic process. He's basically telling you, like, no, he's doing this for us. They first said they won't ever allow France unbound to ever govern. Mélenchon said, fine, let the coalition rule without any members from our party, which was so brave. And they still said Mélenchon will control from the shadows. The argument about financial flight or whatever they call it is interesting to me because as near as I can tell, it's never been tested. And surely there are laws that could be passed. And like China seems to be making shit. Still seems to be making shit. Yeah, no. Capital flight is a lie, okay? Because there are obviously counters against capital flight. One of the greatest arguments you have against capital flight is access to markets, okay? If you have 100% tariffs on Chinese products that you want to place on like their EVs because you don't want them to outcompete your domestic manufacturing or American manufacturing in general, you can also do that for people who say, all right, we're leaving the country. Okay, then you no longer have access to the country. How about that? This is literally the Chinese method. That's it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do without American mouths, dude? What are you going to do without French mouths? What are you going to do? Where are you going to sell? There is no reality, okay? There is no world in which capital flight is a real thing. Who are you going to sell to, dude? Doesn't this only work for big countries? Well, good thing France is not a little country. You're right, but in general, market restrictions will be less actionable in France because they're a part of the EU, but absolutely dead on for the USA and China. No, the EU could move in a much larger way against these kinds of restrictions in terms of capital flight. One untested concept that Piketty has been screaming about for years and years, which is obviously laughable, is a universal wealth tax. Okay? The EU absolutely could, if there was enough initiative, if there was enough momentum. They are, again, doing this for China, literally outcompeting their domestic manufacturers, like European manufacturers in cars. They're already doing this for tariffs against China. Okay? They could literally be like, all right, we're shutting you off from the European market. That's it. I mean, obviously they would never do that, but I'm just saying, like, if there's a will, there's a way. There is a mechanism out there. But the reason why they don't ever do that is because obviously they are institutions that are designed to continue capitalism, not actually fight back against capitalism, even when regulation, some level of regulation, is an absolute necessity. Okay? In the US, interstate capital corporate flights is usually just marketing / publicity. Yeah. There are so many different ways in which you could tell these companies to fuck off, okay? You could tell these companies to suck your dick in so many different ways. You can shut them off from subsidies. You can actually genuinely prosecute a lot of the tax avoidance mechanisms that they use and abuse. Like, there are so many different ways, both in the United States of America and in the European Union as well. Okay? The idea that capital owners have a gun to the heads of every state on this planet is ridiculous. Okay? This is the government, dog. This is the government. Like, what are we talking about? It's supposed to be the most powerful institution. Like, there's no way. There's just no way. California raised the minimum wage to $20 and fast food restaurants threatened to leave if it happened. It did. They have since created 11,000 new fast food jobs. Yeah. What are they going to do? Not sell to the California market? Are you insane? They have to be there. Okay? Do you understand? I hate this argument that, like, these people, even within the mechanisms that exist, right? Even under neoliberal capitalism, there are still regulatory mechanisms that you can apply to these corporations and also cut away at their profit margins, which they hate more than anything else, that would render it impossible for them to make these kinds of open threats. It's wild.
And this is no more. So some investor can wait. We understand that, but I just want to reassure them that the French president will remain French president until 2027, and this is the most important because he really represents the attractiveness politics in France.
Yeah. These people know places outside of population centers have no money. Exiting a market would just be a straight up loss with no trade-off. Yeah. The problem is no one will ever put that forward. No one will ever be like, yeah, we're not doing that actually. Normally, I agree with you, but you're absolutely wrong on this. Capital owners can and will leave the country and completely devastate the lives of people left behind. It's happened historically in most socialist countries and left people helpless against the top of the hour ad break. Oh my God. End the stream. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done, dead. I got owned. I'll recognize it. At the top of the hour, there is a 3-minute ad break, though. If you don't want to be owned by the ad break, May Poontang, thank you for the 10 tier 1 gift of subs, allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. I'm washed. I am washed. You've had your guard down lately. Even Megaphonics has gotten you twice. Said by Megaphonics, referring to himself in the third person at this point. Amazon owns Hasan. Well, my chatters just owned me harder than Amazon ever could. Anyway, quit your day job, King. Yeah, here's the 3-minute ad break now. Gum, thank you for the 5 tier 1 gifted subs. Ahistorical debates never fail. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Very disappointed to see CBS News lazily, thoughtlessly, reflexively call Sean Fan and other union leaders bosses. Fan was democratically elected. He very much listens to UAW's rank and file. So why do headline writers call him a boss? Why don't they call Elon Musk a boss? Former labor reporter at the New York Times, Stephen Greenhouse. As you guys know, this is a lesson that I learned that I will never forget. It's correct. It is correct. Words have meaning. They do that deliberately. Remember all the centrist liberals on Twitter scolding the U.S. left for not just working with the center like leftists in France did? I don't remember that. I thought it was more so like a moment of recognition that like, I thought it was more so a moment of recognition that like leftist unity can get the goods. Like a slight recognition. Joshua something 17, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Okay. So that's the situation in France. It's absolutely ridiculous. French news outlet Le Monde has also argued that in the interest of democracy, Macron, in the absence of any other obvious possibility, should have allowed the left-wing candidate to become prime minister, to allow the experiment to unfold instead of trying to assert control at all costs in the hope of preserving his policy as long as possible, even after it's been outvoted. The outlet wrote in an editorial letter, it is harmful to drag out an outgoing government which acts as if no change had taken place at the ballot box. Philippe Marlière, French and European politics professor at University of London, told Al Jazeera that it was irrelevant for Macron to decide beforehand whether or not Castex would have been successful. I think an appointment yesterday of Lucie Castex would have been something that you can support in constitutional terms because the NFP won the election. Now, can he be impeached? Can Macron be impeached? Yeah, centrists are the most hostile to democracy, not extremists. A article that is evergreen. Central Committee, you are absolutely correct on that. Vote left France. Time to get these centrists out. What do you mean? They did. They did. The problem is Macron, ironically enough, was behaving in incredibly undemocratic ways before this, which led to his unpopularity skyrocketing, and is now continuing along with the undemocratic shit. They did do that. The only hope that I have for France is that they love burning shit, okay? They love burning shit. They love causing a goddamn ruckus, which perhaps could maybe move the needle in this situation. Earlier this month, Mélenchon warned Macron that failure to appoint a left-wing prime minister would result in legal action, suggesting he would invoke Article 68 to trigger Macron's impeachment. Mélenchon repeated this threat of triggering an impeachment process after Macron refused to approve the left-wing alliance's candidate on Monday. The problem is, I suspect that if they were to push for impeachment, they would not be able to get 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly and the Senate because the NFP does not have a majority. And beyond that, Macron is already working. Like, that's the reason why Macron is literally linking up with Marine Le Pen, the National Party, the nationalists, okay, specifically to avoid that sort of thing. Okay, and don't get triggered because I said avoid, because I already ran the top of the hour ad break. None of the leaders of other parties that make up the NFP has yet threatened Macron with impeachment. Since Article 68 was added to the French Constitution in 2007, no president has been impeached. One attempt in 2016 against Francois Hollande which was signed by 79 opposition legislators, was defeated in parliament. Wouldn't someone from the far right just get a no confidence vote right away? It's currently in, I think currently, as it stands, there's just gridlock. That process was triggered after the socialist president made comments to 2 journalists, which revealed that France's secret services had carried out 4 assassinations on his orders, an action which breached security protocols, the rebels asserted. The move to impeach the president was then refused by a parliamentary committee. Now, Macron says he's going to restart new talks between party leaders on Tuesday to try to reach an agreement on a new prime minister. However, the socialists, the Greens, the communists have already said they will not participate in further talks. The LFI, the right-wing National Rally, and the conservative Republicans were not invited to the new talks. The move is seen as appeasing moderates. Green Party chief Marine Tondelier told local radio on Tuesday that the election was being stolen from the NFP alliance, which is exactly what's going on. We're not going to continue these sham consultations with the president who doesn't listen anyway and is obsessed with keeping control. He's not looking for a solution. He's trying to obstruct it. Olivier Faure has also refused to attend new talks with Macron and said he would not be an accomplice to a parody of democracy. The most likely scenario, what is it? Marlier told Al Jazeera that the current situation in the country is absolutely unheard of and that Macron is wading into uncharted territory since the left-wing alliance has already ruled out any alliance with his party. Following the refusal to approve Castex, Marlier said the only certainty is that Macron will not choose a leftist candidate and will be looking for someone from the center-left or center-right. This may work in the short term, he added, but there will most likely be another need for an election next year. I would love for an LFI government, but to be fair, most of French voted for right-wing parties, so calling for a democracy is weird. I want to put you on a trebuchet, okay? What are you saying? Why are centrists so delusional? That is not what happened. It is the exact opposite of what happened, and you're over here saying that that is what happened. He's not wrong for the most part. Yes, he is. It doesn't matter, okay? We don't sit around and go, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Like, I will never abide by this, okay? It doesn't matter if you find the system to be unjust. Ultimately, you work within the confines. You can't just like cry to the referees and be like, well, this game of basketball should not be on how many buckets were scored over the other team, but instead about who had less fouls. Like, you can't do that after the game is over, okay? What the NFP won't exist in a year. Macron was right. Macron is kind of right, though. NFP should not exist. NFP won't be a thing in a year. Macron is right. What are you saying? It exists currently, and the idea that like, oh, well, it exists currently, but we want to hope that like we can break through. They want an election. Like, what are we talking about? What is happening? Who's triggered now, bud? I am. I'm triggered. NFP's insanely bloated and some factions hate each other. It doesn't matter. It worked, and it's working currently. The only reason why it's not working is because Macron is trying to break it. It's so stupid. If it was a failure in and of itself, Macron wouldn't be trying to hold it up. You are delusional if you don't recognize exactly what he's doing. What the I don't understand it. These motherfuckers hate democracy, bro. There is no other answer. Okay? You're just coping. The people who screech about progressives being unelectable are literally short-circuiting in the face of them getting elected and don't have another argument. Yeah, so now they're just like trying to stop it. That's why I said it's not like the 30s in Germany, right? Because this time there is an electoral victory that was secured by a leftist coalition. And even then, the centrists are like, nah, we're going to fuck up the bag anyway. How can you claim that you were so anti-fascism and you ran on being anti-fascism, you ran on being the only guy that could stop fascism from thriving in the country, and then turn around and glad handle the fascists because now you're the real enemy has actually shown momentum. It makes no sense. What's so funny is that if these brain-dead chatters were saying what he was saying was true, Macron would love to watch them implode and collapse, giving them the space to do so. The only reason he's corruptly breaking the rules is because he fears it won't collapse. Exactly. It's crazy, dude. I can't believe we're watching the guy openly align, the guy who's supposed to be the best anti-fascist pick, okay, Macron, openly collude with fascists because he's afraid of a left-wing movement in the country, and you're still trying to come up with post hoc rationalization as to why it's like actually secretly a failure after all. Like, it's not. It wasn't. What the I don't think there's an accurate... Macron's best hope now is to make a grand alliance with the center with the Republicans and socialists, but only if he can split the socialists off from the NFP, which Faure has shown himself unlikely to do so. If Faure is unwilling to split the socialists off from the NFP, then Macron has essentially no shot of forming a government. 37.6% versus 25.80. The issue with it is that there won't be a public consensus because 75% of the country doesn't see rejection of an NFP government as illegitimate. Macron's best hope now is to make a grand alliance of the center with the Republicans and socialists. I don't know. We'll see. It depends on the amount of public pressure that comes from this. This is Macron being Macron with personal ambition. I think it's less ideological than some think. I mean, I think that's even more insane. And it will actually, in my opinion, work in the favor of any, it will probably galvanize the leftist coalition, because if there's no ideological ambition behind it, and it's just Macron, a unpopular figure, doing an insanely undemocratic thing, then people are obviously going to be even more frustrated. But I don't think it's not ideological. I do think it's ideological. I think it is because he is a right-winger. He's always been a right-winger, and he will continue being a right-winger. And as a right-winger who is trying to maintain corporate interests, he's doing this. He's Jupiterian, remember? Anyway, new popular front. 48 days afterwards, and Macron and his government are still running the country. They basically ignored the election results, which is unprecedented in the history of the French's Fifth Republic. Normally, as is the rule set by precedents, Macron should have nominated a prime minister from the new popular front, the winners of the elections. At first, Macron argued that it wasn't convenient to change government right before the Olympics, which is a bit bizarre because he's the one who decided to hold the elections right before the Olympics, by the way. Anyhow, we're still now almost 2 weeks after the end of the Olympics, especially given that the new popular front has a prime minister ready, Lucie Castet, a senior public servant. Now the excuse by Macron's camp is that they refuse a government from anyone with France is Unbound, Mélenchon's party, the main party on the left, and therefore the main party in the new popular front coalition. Now, Lucie Castet is not from France is Unbound, but they believe, like the chatter was saying, that she will be led by a shadow. She will be led by like a shadow government that Jean-Luc Mélenchon puts together. It's not really undemocratic. The goal in a multi-party system is coming up with a majority coalition that can actually function. NFP and Ensemble are far too apart to form a functioning coalition. It's weird that you say that, because that functioning coalition was the only way to successfully kick out the nationalist party, which is what they did. The only problem is there's one guy at the tippy top that is refusing to abide by exactly what happened in the democratic process, going back to the argument that I'm making, which is that it is Macron that is undemocratic in this circumstance. Do you not understand? They're far too apart is ridiculous. If they were far too apart, first of all, the elections would not have even happened, really. And it's not like the person that they suggested is not from France's Unbound. So I don't understand. Ensemble is Macron's party. I understand that. Except even members of his own party literally worked together when Macron did not wish to do so. That's what I am saying. Ensemble aligned with the new popular front in the elections. It just happened. You were there. You watched it. We watched it happen. So it seems like people did not give a fuck about what Macron was saying because they recognized, maybe internalized something that Macron was talking about last time around. Okay? The idea that, the Nationalist Party winning would be devastating. And they were right. Yeah. Never officially, actually. I hate these guys, but Macron literally tried to stop motherfuckers from dropping out of races, and many went against him. That's what I'm saying. Macron personally tried to fuck up the bag in a last-ditch effort, it seems, and it still didn't work. Anyway, Macron has been demonizing the LFI in a very similar fashion to the way Jeremy Corbyn was demonized in the UK with accusations of anti-Semitism for their support of Gaza, except that, unlike Corbyn, LFI doesn't bow. They're friends unbowed after all, and fight back. Which brings me to what happened this morning, an incredible gamble by Mélenchon, who asked an open question to Macron. Say we committed no LFI members in the government. Would you nominate Lucie Castet as prime minister? This forces Macron's hand. If he says no, as Mélenchon himself wrote, it'd show that Macron's refusal to have LFI in the government is just a pretext to deny election results. In the effect, if he says no, he openly admits that he just doesn't accept the election results. Olivier Faure, who leads the Socialist Party, the other big political force, backs up Mélenchon and says the pretext of the presence of LFI ministers isn't valid anymore. In a way, the new Popular Front government without LFI would itself a denial of democracy because most voters voted for them because LFI was a part of the coalition. So they're trying to play ball in like ridiculous ways with not the nationalists, but instead with the ensemble and with Macron. And Macron is still single-handedly refusing the democratic results. There is no way to look at the situation. There's no way to interpret the situation other than Macron is single-handedly this up. Kaya, place. It's like Trump saying, I'd love the transition to the Democratic president-elect, but Democrats don't have enough votes or ideological overlap with the Republicans in Congress to effectively govern. Yeah. I mean, it's a parliamentary system, so it's a little bit different, but like still, it would be like, oh yeah, well, Bernie was robbed, so we're just not going to do that. We're not going to hand over the government to Joe Biden. I mean, it's a little bit different, though, because, like, legally speaking, Macron doesn't actually technically have to appoint someone from the governing coalition at all. Macron doesn't have to appoint someone legally from the majority party or the party with the most seats. He does not have to do that, whereas Trump does legally have to concede. It's just one of those situations where it's, like, unprecedented. We've already had some, it's unprecedented in the same way that, like, I guess Trump tried to do like, like ballot swaps or stop the normal process, like the January 6th situation, right? Like that was unprecedented. Even if it was like successful, right? Even if they had successfully stopped the vice president from certifying the results, like, it would not have changed the reality that like an election had taken place and the Democrats have won, right? That's, I think, a better analog in this situation where, like, legally speaking, the vice president could actually refuse to certify the election, the results, certify the ballots, but that doesn't change what happened that like 300 million Americans actually experienced, right? So it's kind of like that. We've already asked some of Macron's lieutenants to reply, such as Benjamin Haddad, former spokesperson for Macron's party in the French parliament, who literally says that a new Popular Front government is unacceptable either way because it would be bad for France. They did get to decide this. Let's see what Macron ultimately does. But we're truly witnessing something extraordinary that demonstrates how undemocratic France has become. The people voted, and the result of their vote is so far simply rejected because those holding power don't like it. Another extraordinary comment on this matter is by Francois Bayrou, a former Macron minister and a famous centrist politician in France. He literally says that the answer to Mélenchon's question is, of course no, i.e. a new Popular Front government won't be accepted no matter what, because the program, the NFP, is very dangerous for France. By the way, the danger is like reducing the retirement age, like something that they literally burned the country to the ground on not that long ago. Like, that's what's dangerous. The danger is democracy. It goes back to the neoliberalism that I was talking about, which is that corporate interests must be maintained no matter what. And these guys are incredibly hostile to the democratic process when it doesn't go in the way that they want it to. Okay? So anyone that tries to act like this is allowed or permissible or normal, I don't know what to tell you. Okay. Also, that the beginning and end of democracy is a vote every 4 or 5 years. Am I misunderstanding this? It basically sounds like the incumbents are openly saying we will not give up control because the winners are too leftist. Yes and no. Yes, because, you know, Macron is willing to do what every government has done thus far. But no, because technically his party is a part of securing the majority. And also on top of that, it is up to the president to appoint this person. And there is technically nothing, I don't think, in the books that says they can't appoint whoever they want. This shit should happen in any non-Western country. They would report on it nonstop as something undemocratic, yet another sign of fascism being on the rise, which would be correct as it is here too. The new Popular Front is campaigning on a platform that will raise France's monthly minimum wage, lower the legal retirement age to 60, freeze the price of basic necessities, including food, energy, and gas, Instead of drastically cutting immigration as the far right has promised, the coalition pledged to make the asylum process more generous and smooth, also calling for a 90% tax on income over $400,000. That is, of course, terrifying to, moneyed interests. Anyway, wait, before you move on, can you explain why the wealthy leaving will not be bad for the country? They are not leaving. That's not a real thing, especially because there are a shit ton of mechanisms where the government can apply pressure to the wealthy that act like they are going to engage in capital flight. That's the point. What is the number one mechanism? Shutting them off from the market. Okay? Oh, you're not going to play ball? You're not going to pay your taxes? Sorry, you can't sell your products any longer to our consumers. That's it. That's it. That chatter is wrong. They would only report it if the government was opposed to the U.S. Look at what happened in Egypt and Pakistan. U.S. media doesn't care about those coups because they're aligned with the U.S. Capitol. Yeah. Technically, Macron can appoint any random person, elected or not. The parliament can just do a vote of no confidence and kick them out immediately. Strange political system in my eyes, but yeah, exactly. How are there only 11K viewers in here? There aren't. All right.